Hello and welcome. Welcome to episode number 2 of the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski. I am your host on this adventure. And this is episode number 2. And we're going to focus today on a column that I recently wrote at uncoverdc.com. And it's called The Decade of Disdain, Part 1, Democrats Want Control. Before I get into that column, I want to do a little bit of a background on where Obama came from and some of the mindsets that our country had leading up to Obama, and where this last decade ended up going off the rails and off track, if you will. I'll just jump right in here and start talking about kind of the medical advances that we've had, because not everything's bad, right? We always go where we're focused. We can focus on good things. We can focus on bad things. Everything in life is about choices, and you choose where you focus. So I'm not always looking at what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, although I've kind of made a career of fixing things in workplaces for people. But we've had a lot of cool things happen. There's like medical advances, especially. One of the things that I mentioned in my column is gloves that people who are deaf can wear. And those gloves, when you're signing something, it will create a text for somebody of what you're saying. That's cool. Someone who's deaf can put on gloves and sign, and it can type out for someone like me who doesn't understand sign language. If they aren't able to talk, and many people have a difficult time talking, I can at least read the text, right? Pretty cool. Something else is being able to move prosthetic limbs with your mind. Neuroprosthetics is what they're calling them. And I link to a story, a video. You can go to the column and read and click the link, watch the video. This lady lost her arm, got infected real bad from an animal bite, and I think it was cut off above the elbow. And they developed a device that with a band that goes around her bicep area, and it connects to the nerves in her arm, because those nerves are connected to the brain. Okay, so if you've watched episode 1, you know that my background is in education. I've got an undergrad in training and development, a master's in training and development, and all of my doctoral work is in learning and organizational learning. So I know people learn, and when we teach a skill, it's called psychomotor learning. 2 words, psycho and motor. Psycho for the brain, motor for the muscles. And so the brain has to tell our muscles what to do. When you move your hand, all you're doing is thinking of wanting to move your fingers, and they move. Your brain's sending electrical, chemical instructions down those brain waves, and then it goes down to the hardwired nerves, and you can move your hands. Okay. They now know where those nerves go in the arms. So they put a band around her arm, and it's cool to watch this video. You can just see her hand moving, and she's moving the fingers, and she picks stuff up, all just using the same kind of neural pathways that you and I would. So what a way cool medical advance. And then the third one that I link to is chips that they're implanting in people's retinas. So people who have lost their sight, they can implant these chips in the back of their eyes and connect them up to the optic nerves. And these people who have gone blind and have been blind for decades are now able to see again. It's very pixelated. It's not crystal clear at all. It's kind of like looking at a very pixelated picture, but they can see. It doesn't work if you were born blind, because your optic nerves never developed, and so there's nothing to connect them to. But if you had sight and then subsequently lost it, they can now implant these chips, and they're giving people their sight back. That is an amazing medical breakthrough. There's so much cool things that happened in our country, in the world, as a matter of fact. The poverty rate in the world is the lowest it's ever been. Isn't that cool news this last decade? Lots of cool things are happening. But the left is pissed off. because of the interruption in their flow of progress. Donald Trump really threw a wrench in their gears, and they're not happy. I'm going to go back beyond the presence of Donald Trump in the White House, but to talk about the trajectory, though, that the left has been on, because, well, I'm just going to say it. It's been a socialist / Marxist march. You go back to the whole concept of Marxism, and that is state-run, and everybody's equal, and everybody gets fair. If you study Marxism, and gosh, I wish I could just boil this down in the simple, but I've studied it so much, you can't boil it down except that they want to be statists, right? And they want conflict. To develop a statist nation here in the United States, they need to tear down our current form of government, because none of us who are born and raised in America, where we had the 4th of July in our youth and we understood what patriotism was about, we're not going to just fall over for that. And Russia learned about 1945 that we were pretty much unbeatable. That's when the Cold War started. And Russia decided they were going to encroach their communistic views. And they realized that we weren't going to just fall over, and they weren't going to be able to beat us in a war. So then you have Khrushchev getting up there saying that that they're going to eventually win without firing a shot, that they're going to beat us from within. And that was their goal. Lenin wrote his book, One Step Forward, Two Steps Back, his complaints that the Communist Party had split, that they had taken a step forward, but then took 2 steps back in their split. But really, they turned that around. And the whole communist movement in our country has been 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And they purposely, and this is not just Daniel Bobinski making this up. This is not just me hypothesizing this. Maybe I'll do a column on this in some point in the future, but really, the leftists infiltrated education purposefully to bring about a socialistic / Marxist mindset. They infiltrated our legal systems, our law schools, and our government. They infiltrated our media on purpose. They infiltrated our entertainment on purpose, and they infiltrated even the church. These are the 5 areas in which Marxists and socialists really started pushing, because that's where they could make the most inroads to changing the American mindset. Again, this is not just me making this up. I'm probably going to have to write a column on this now, and that I'm okay doing that. But you say even the church, Bobinski? Yes, even the church. I just got done reviewing a book called Kingdom Theology, or it was about Kingdom Theology, where they advocate that the Bible advocates socialism, that God's economy is a socialist economy, that Jesus was a socialist. Let me tell you just one reason why that can't not be true. Socialism violates your free will. To mandatorily confiscate money from you to give to somebody else is violating your free will. And nowhere in the Bible does it say to do that. Free will is God's way of the universe. So much, with all due respect to my Calvinistic friends. And at some point, maybe I'll tell you how free will and Calvinism and predestination actually can both be true. But my point is that you can't have socialism and you can't have free will, because that's theft. God loves a cheerful giver, not somebody who gives under compulsion of an IRS arrest and a year in jail. So no, I don't buy it. Socialism is not scriptural. Anyways, the left has been on a trajectory, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They'll take 2 steps forward. Society will go, oh gosh, we don't want that. And then it's kind of like a little yellow flag, and the socialistic march forward will stop, and they'll take a step back. And they'll wait a few years, and then they'll take 2 steps forward, And then somebody will go, no, well, we can't have that. That's not our principles. And then they'll take a step back. And they've been doing that for decades, maybe 8, 9, or 10 decades, but especially the last 5 decades. And I think what happened with Obama is they were having so much success, they stopped taking one step back. And the people finally had enough, and they voted in Donald Trump just to say, enough, we're tired of this, we don't want it. So I think really had the left had they taken their steps back like they had been previous to Obama, I think you would have seen Hillary get elected. I don't think people would have been pissed off enough. But Obama got up there, and maybe you can see the video online still where Obama gets up and he says, we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. And the crowd cheered because people thought he was going to be fixing the economy and fundamentally transforming us out of wars and fundamentally transforming rich people's money into poor people's hands, you know, the Obama phone, all those kind of things. That was not the kind of transformation that Obama was doing. He brought about a cultural transformation. Obama's upbringing was not American. He was born in Hawaii, they say. I still say that's up for debate because I don't trust that PDF that was generated. Different topic. Anyways, let's just assume he was born in Hawaii. We do know that he got adopted by a Muslim in Malaysia, and his name was changed to Barry, and he was raised Islamic. He was raised as Muslim. Our values are formed when we're very, very young. I'm a certified values analyst, have been since 2003. People get their values through emotional imprints, and those things happen in our young years. And maybe sometime I'll talk about that. But let's just say that Obama had adopted some values that weren't necessarily what you and I might consider true patriotic American. And yes, I might call Obama's patriotism into account. And I don't care if you want to get mad at me about that. We can have that debate, and I'm happy to debate you with that. But I also want you to take a look at, do some internet research and look up what the Down Low Club was at Obama's church, where Reverend Wright was the pastor, and read about what happened with Obama and the Down Low Club and some of the accusations that were made. All of them not proven. Before Obama got elected, he made this really highbrow video where he said, the only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide. And why is it that so many of Obama's documents were hidden and we never got to see them? Just asking a question there. Maybe somebody should find some answers, right? So one of the things that Obama brought about was a cultural change. I mean, we ended up with gay marriage being stroke of a pen through the Supreme Court. All of a sudden, that's a law. We have a right for that. And you know what? I'm a Christian libertarian. I personally don't know what the state is doing in the marriage business, because if you do a little research on the origin of marriage licenses in this country, it's got a pretty ugly history. Marriage licenses were created in the 1920s to prevent blacks from marrying whites and whites from marrying Hispanics. And you were supposed to marry within your race. Doubt me? Go look it up. If you were black and you wanted to marry a white person, you couldn't do it. You needed a license from the state, and the state was not going to issue that license. In fact, even as late as 1967 in Florida, if you were black and you married someone who was white, you're looking at 10 years in prison if that couple got married. You know what? I'm so glad that is gone. The state has no business issuing marriage licenses. But it's all beside the point, I guess. Enter gay marriage, enter transgenderism. Our track star becomes a female. I don't know. He still has male parts. All this personal pronouns you have to call somebody. Men being able to use women's bathroom because they self-identify as a girl, as a female. I was shocked. I was looking at the news the other day and I saw that my high school, where I grew up back in the Chicago area, the boy wants to be a girl. And so they said he wanted to use the girls' locker room during PE class. So they gave him a special space in the locker room. And then he felt picked on, I forget the word, but he felt, disenfranchised in some way. And so they said, fine, you can now use the whole locker room. Holy cow. What about the rights of the girls? And so what really, when Obama's talking about fundamentally transforming the United States of America, he transformed us culturally in a really a way that tore apart the fabric of what we were accustomed to as a nation. And then the influx of refugees coming in that weren't even vetted. And Obama's administration put a lot of these refugees in rural communities that are conservative in nature, as if to force, here, you're going to be forced to have this culture on you now. Instead of letting it happen organically, he forced it on us. So there was this big change. I'm not against refugees, don't get me wrong, but forcing it into cultures like this, and again, not having all the medical reviews and all that stuff, really did start tearing at the fabric of our country. I just want to say something about this phrase about strength through diversity. Like I said, I've been a certified behavioral analyst for a long time. I was doing some teaching one time with a friend of mine who wrote a book on diversity, cultural diversity. And she was with me, and I'm teaching on behavioral differences and behavioral styles. And these are universal. I mean, I've been to 17 countries. I got friends that have been to over 100 countries. At the same time, I know people who've never even left their state. But I just been to 17 countries, and I've taught in these places, and it doesn't matter what country you're in, behavioral styles among people are the same. You're going to see the same 4 basic behavioral styles everywhere in the world. And that's why it's called a universal language, because no matter where you go, there they are. So I'm teaching this about these behavioral differences at this company, and I have my friend who's with me, and she's written this book on diversity, cultural diversity, and she's watching how I talk about how we need to value the differences in our behavioral style. After the training, we went out to dinner to debrief, and she says, you know what? She goes, what you're teaching there, that's true diversity. And she actually admitted that her cultural stuff that she was teaching was just cultural diversity, that within a culture, you still have diversity. And that's the true diversity, because even if you bring in somebody from culture A to culture B, they're going to have those same 4 behavioral styles. And if you learn those 4 behavioral styles, now you've got an understanding of true diversity and valuing those differences. All that to say that we have this phrase that was foisted upon us decades ago called strength through diversity. Well, I, above all, get that. I teach this stuff, right? But that phrase is a misnomer when not applied properly, because just like the phrase of illegal discrimination, which I talked about in the previous podcast, we have this strength through diversity, which means, hey, the more diversity we have, the better we are. False. The more diversity we have that we value, the better we are. It's not strength through diversity. It's strength through valuing the diversity. And when you bring in a culture that doesn't value the culture in which to which they're being brought, that they refuse to assimilate, that's not valuing the differences. And now you have true division, because the word diversity is stemming from the word division. So now you have division. When things are divided, they're not strong. Mr. Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." He was quoting the Bible, because they were accusing Jesus of casting out demons. When he said, when they accused him of being from the devil, well, how can the devil cast out demons? How can the devil beat himself? It's like, it doesn't make sense, right? So you can't have a culture being brought to another culture and then refusing to assimilate. That's not valuing the differences. You can have all the cultural diversity you want, but if you're not valuing those differences, then you don't have a unity, and you don't have a culture. You don't have strength. Strength comes through unity. That's what it comes through. If I can see your difference and value it and see it as part of my team, now we've got strength. If I see your cultural difference and I refuse to assimilate into your culture, no strength. By the way, if you want to see this just in action, very fun movie, total aside here. Cool Runnings, about the Jamaican bobsledders. Fun movie. If you've got kids and you've never seen that movie, show them this movie. It's totally safe. There's a bunch of great lessons in there, life lessons. But one of the reasons I brought that up is there's a scene in the movie. This movie's filmed in Jamaica. And there's a scene in the movie where the track runners are getting ready for a race. And behind them, there's a sign on the fence that says, "Strength through unity." And the reason that's popped out to me is because I so much teach on this stuff. And I so much am against this lie of strength through diversity. So we're going to go where we're focused as a people. No matter what we do in life, we're always going to go where we're focused. As a nation, we're going to go where we're focused. And if we're focused on divisions and not unifying the strength of those, we don't have unity. There's a lot of button pushing going on from the left, because they want us divided. They really, really do. When you look at what has happened over the past 10 years, like in Ferguson and in Florida with the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman thing, oh my gosh, where was the unity talk from the White House or any of our congressional leaders? We had nothing but divisive talk. It was an us versus them. And then you ended up with, breaks my heart. You had police people getting assassinated because they were white, sitting in their police car, not doing anything to anybody. And someone walks up and kills them, shoots them, makes their spouse a widow, makes their kids without a dad. Come on, where was the leadership talking about unifying people and stop the division? We didn't get that. The left wants us divided. Marx wanted people divided. His whole thing was class warfare, class struggle. And as long as there was a struggle going on, he could get what he wanted. He called religion the opium of the masses. If you were a believer in God and you had faith and peace in your station in life, and you were concerned about a struggle, not envying, 1 Corinthians 13, if you weren't envying, then you didn't have a struggle, and then you couldn't do what Marx wanted. He wanted people divided. Christianity, a religion, was the opium to the masses, unquoting from Marx. The left hasn't changed. They still want us divided. They still want white against black. They still want men against women. They want toxic masculinity against, feminine men. They're trying to divide us in every possible way. If you know that, you're aware of it, then you can't be affected of it, right? It's like an antidote. So we need to know that that's their focus. We need to know they're trying to tear apart the fabric of our country, and they were making a whole lot of steps forward. What I want to do is kind of go over my column that I wrote. And I have 5 points in here talking about what the left has been doing over the past decade. The first is the push for open borders. You can, and I link to this in this column, you can go to uncoverdc.com, read this column, Disdain for A Decade of Disdain, and you'll see the link where you have Pelosi and Obama and Schumer and Hillary all talking about the need for border security. It's just 10 years ago they were doing this. Why we need more border security, and we need a fence, and we need to invest more in border security. All of a sudden there's a change. Why? Dennis Prager, if you've not followed Dennis Prager, you should. Dennis Prager wrote a column for National Review, and he talked that the number one reason that the Democrats want open borders is because between 70 and 80% of all the Latinos coming across the border are going to vote Democrat. Democrats do not win their arguments in logic. Do you hear any big name left-wing radio talk show hosts? No, because when you're driving in your car and you're not influenced by the picture on the screen and you're just listening to the logic of the conversation, leftism makes no sense. That's why you don't have left-wing versions of Rush Limbaugh. You don't have left-wing versions of Hannity or Mark Levin or Lars Larson. You don't have these people. Michael Savage. You don't have them. All you have is conservative right-wing talk show hosts, because logically their arguments make sense. Left-wing does not fly in logic, so they can't have, they're not going to win their arguments on logic. It's just emotion, and that happens through TV screens when you have the newscaster rolling his eyes, or the lady in the background on the B-roll footage crying because something happened. That evokes an emotional response. We don't need people coming across our borders to vote Democrat, okay? We have laws for that. We have border laws. Oh yeah, free stuff too, by the way. Let's woo them over. Let's offer you free this and free this. Come across the border, come on, you're gonna get all this free education and free healthcare. If we were really talking about quid pro quo, that's what we're talking about, right? I also link in this article to a video on YouTube about gumballs and immigration and world poverty. Roy Beck is the guy who's doing it. It's only 5 minutes long, and I highly recommend you click on that and watch that video if you haven't already. He does a great job of explaining how world poverty is and how America's immigration policy is, and if we take in more than we're taking in now, we're going to crumble our country, and we're not going to help the world hardly at all. We're going to do more damage. So principles are in place for a reason. The left is moving forward with blinders on. They're not seeing the ripple effects of their actions. They have selfish motives to divide us and tear us apart. The fabric of our country. We don't want that to happen. By the way, speaking of crossing the borders, number 2 on this list is saying that illegal entry is not a crime. Maybe you've heard Congress people lately talking that to cross the border illegally is not a crime. It's a civil violation. And they're trying to downplay that. Not true. I loved seeing the former acting director for Homeland Security, for ICE, for Immigration Customs Enforcement, Thomas Homan, saying that if you enter the country, the United States illegally, it's a crime because of 8 U.S. Code 1325, which spells out that if you enter the country illegally, and if you go read that code, and you can go online and read it, it says that this is how you enter the country, through these ways, and it lists a couple of ways. It says if you enter the country not according to those ways, border checkpoints, yada, 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 it will result in either a fine or 6 months in prison or both. In fact, you can even be convicted of a crime and a civil violation if you cross the border illegally. Illegally meaning against the law, right? And yet here we have an El Paso congresswoman sending her staff down into Mexico to train people there who are not US citizens, how to skirt the law and what to say and what to do so they can get into the country and stay. I don't know about you, but that sounds like it's a violation of the US code. So we have US Congress people sending their staff down to Mexico to teach people to come into our country illegally. Wouldn't that be criminal? Where's the rein on Congress? Huh? Who's holding those reins? How about also number 3, issuing driver's licenses to what I'll call unauthorized inhabitants? Because right now we have like New York. If you're a policeman or a lawyer or anybody who works for the state or the city, you cannot use the word illegal alien. You get fined for that. It's $10,000. I could be wrong. Check on that. But you get fined for using the term. Just for saying illegal alien is now a crime in New York. That's nuts. So let's make our New Yorkers feel comfortable and safe. Let's use the term unauthorized inhabitant. How's that? Because I refuse to use undocumented immigrants, because that's just a lie. They have broken the law. They have entered the country in violation of US code. That makes them breaking a law, which makes them a criminal. They're a criminal. Anyways, 13 states and the District of Columbia now offer driver's licenses to people who are here illegally. How about that? And get this, last year, and this one, I guess 2 years ago, this is now 2020. In 2018, 81,000 people were arrested for DUI who were here in the country illegally. 81,000 illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, unauthorized inhabitants were arrested for DUI. That's the ones that were arrested. And there's no organization that is measuring how many of us natural citizens are being killed in car accidents by people driving who are in this country illegally, who would be alive if the person here illegally wasn't here, right? At least we would hope so. So you have, nobody can really track down the exact number, but there's several organizations that do track this. And each one of them have figured out that roughly about 10 people a day, some a little more, some a little less, but 10 people a day are being killed, 10 US citizens, you and me, being killed in car accidents by drivers who are not here legally. Now we're going to issue them driver's licenses? What's up with that? Just to make us feel better? Let's take a look at this guy named Gallo, Roberto Gallo, 2010. Here in the country illegally, driving a car, runs over a college student who's 25 years old. The Mr. Gallo freaks out. He turns around, he's trying to get out of the scene of the crime. He ends up running over the motorcyclist several more times and kills him. When they finally do catch Mr. Gallo, he gets convicted of manslaughter, and his prison sentence is a whopping 6 weeks long. This is in California, 2010. If we take 10 people per day since 2010, we're looking at about 30,000 innocent American citizens killed by people in this country illegally. To all my leftist friends out there, does this sit comfortably with you at all? Does it? Because if it does, you are seared. Your conscience must be totally seared if this is reasonable and acceptable to you. I find it sickening. 6 weeks in jail. 6 weeks for running over somebody on a motorcycle, who's riding a motorcycle. You can bet your bottom dollar that if these people were coming into this country illegally and killing 10 people a day using a handgun or an AR-15 and voting Republican, that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer would be leading the charge, coming house to house and collecting money to build a wall. Guarantee it. What's the difference, Nancy? Think for a second. Think of all the widows and the people who are fatherless now or motherless now, or parents who have to bury their children. Think about that, Nancy. All right, so now we have these people getting driver's licenses. And we also have a lot more states, thankfully, requiring people to have an ID to vote. Oh my gosh, isn't that an amazing thing? We need an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes or buy a bottle of beer, which you can go and sit and have a smoke and have a beer. Oh, not bothering anybody or affecting anybody, but letting you vote, and your vote in ripple effects into a candidate being elected who's going to make decisions that affect me and affect you. I want someone to have an ID. I want someone who's going to that voting booth to prove that they are who they are. Yes, everybody has a right to vote. I sat across from someone one time, about 10, 15 years ago, who said, oh, we can't demand that people have IDs because that's violating their rights to vote. What about their right to buy a cigarette, or their right to drive a car, or buy a house, or rent an apartment? Everything needs an ID. And you know what? That argument is specious. Anybody, all states have now said, if you do not have an ID, come on down. If you can't afford one, we'll give you one. So don't give me this disenfranchising people because they don't have an ID. If people can have an ID to go down and apply for food stamps, if that's the people that you're talking about, they're going to have an ID to vote. So don't give me this. Anyways, I'm glad to see states finally requiring IDs to vote. Well, now you've got states giving IDs to illegal aliens, unauthorized inhabitants, and now they can go vote. And in an article, I have a link to a video where James O'Keefe from Project Veritas goes to the voting precinct where Eric Holder is registered to vote. Yes, former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. And O'Keefe walks up to the guy and says, yeah, my name's Eric Holder. And here gives the guy his address, which they bleep out. And the guy flips through the book and he goes, yep, here you are. Verifies the address, yep, audibly, doesn't check an ID. And then O'Keefe says, I'd like to go get my ID. I forgot it out in the car. And the guy says, oh, you don't need an ID. I'm sorry. When that happens, that's just ripe for voter fraud. And if you want to know where voter fraud comes from, take a look at the 2012 election in Ohio, where in 44 districts in the state of Ohio, Mr. Obama got 14,686 votes. Okay, 14,000 plus votes. In those same 44 districts, Mr. Romney got 23 votes. Now, you know what? I know people in Ohio liked Mr. Obama, but I took stats in my master's classes and I took stats in my doctoral classes, and that separation of 14,600 plus votes to 23 is a statistical impossibility. It just isn't going to happen. Let's just say voter fraud. Can we? And can we take a look at Florida? There's a county in Florida that had 175,000 registered voters, but 247,000 people voted. How does that happen? Oh, maybe it's people voting illegally. And by the way, my column on this came out on December 30th of 2019. On January 1st of 2020, 2 days later, Daily Caller, Jason Hopkins penned an article here where the Homeland Security Chief orders a review of state laws allowing driver's licenses for illegal aliens. Yay! I doubt that they read my column and decided in 2 days to do that, but just coincidental. But thank you, Jason, for pointing that out. And I'm really glad that the Homeland Security people are now going to look into that. And maybe we can stop giving driver's licenses to people here who are not here legally. Just a thought. Oh, and by the way, also now you also have states that can have automatic voter registration, right? So if you walk in and you get a driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. Or if you go in and apply for food stamps, you're automatically registered to vote. So if you're illegally here and you go get an illegal driver's license, and now you're automatically registered to vote. Amazing. Don't even have to be a citizen. Wouldn't we call that foreign interference with our elections? Just thinking here for a second. All right, lastly on my list, one more thing on that. All those states that are giving driver's licenses to illegals and automatically registering them to vote, all of those states that do that are run by Democrats, Democratic governor, Democratic houses. So, and there's even towns where they're encouraging non-citizens to vote. Go figure. Lastly, I want to talk about sanctuary cities, and this one irks me the most. Sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. When you had Mr. Obama's administration building cages down along the border to hold those kids and keep them safe, while their parents who had crossed the border illegally were being processed, nobody said a word. It was no different than if you're driving your car and you're drunk and you have your child in the back seat, or maybe you're not drunk, maybe you're just exceeding the speed limit 20 miles an hour, whatever, and you get arrested, you are now separated from your children. Or maybe you don't even have your kids in your car. Maybe you're a single parent and you're out and you get arrested. Now, guess what? You're separated from your children. Ta-da! That's how our laws work. So if someone crosses the border in violation of our laws, and they separate the adults from the kids, and they put the kids in these cages with all the amenities that they need to keep them safe from becoming a child traffic victim, and they process the parents for their crime of crossing illegally. When Obama's administration was doing it, nobody said a word. But suddenly Trump gets elected and those same cages are being used, and now Trump is devastating and tearing apart families. Oh my gosh, the horror of it all. So now we have law officers, legal people saying, we're not going to cooperate with ICE. ICE is mean. They need to be abolished. Knee jerk, anybody? So now you have political grandstanding. You have law enforcement officers who are being told by their superiors in these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states not to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement, ICE. So you're a cop. You arrest somebody who's done a crime, a violent crime, perhaps any kind of crime. Let's just say it's not even a violent crime. Let's say you arrest somebody and you find out the person is here illegally and they're obviously in violation. And ICE says, hey, we found out you have an illegal person there. We will hold that person. We're going to come collect that person and process them out of the country. With these sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, they don't do that. They don't keep these people. They just release them back into the community. And I link in near tears reading about all these people who have been raped and stabbed and killed because our own law enforcement officers are sending these people out into society again after our other law enforcement agency, ICE, has said, please hold them. We want to come collect them. You call yourself a law enforcement officer? You call yourself a governor? That you do this? That you think this is allowable? Your conscience must be totally seared beyond belief. I can't understand or even fathom how you can sleep at night by doing that. This is unreal. This is showing disdain for the fabric of our country, for a country that is supposed to be run by a rule of law, right? We got Nancy up there talking all the time. Nobody is above the law. You shouldn't be below it either. I am disgusted with the direction that these two-step forward, two-step forward, two-step forward people are taking and not taking any steps back. It is time for it to stop. I am so glad we have someone in office who's saying enough. I just hope it's not too little too late. I am glad to see tens of thousands of people rallying when Trump speaks. I'm glad to see tens of thousands of people outside of the rallies when Trump speaks. And for those on the left who want to accuse us of being fascists, you obviously don't know how to read a dictionary. You might want to go pull up a dictionary and look up the definition of the word fascism and take a look at what the rules the left has been implying, have been importing into us, into our country, and forcing down our throats. It is the left, my friends, that are the fascists, not Donald Trump. He's really trying to follow the Constitution. And everybody who wears one of those red MAGA hats is too. So you've been lied to if you think that those are the fascists. You've been lied to. If you think that it's okay for Obama to put people in cages, but not for Trump, then you need to go to the dictionary and look up the definition of the word double standard. I think I'm done. I want to write some more on this decade of disdain. And maybe a part 2, definitely a part 2, and probably a part 3 and a part 4 too. Exposing some of the stuff that our left has been doing. And I want us to raise up people in our Congress, in our city governments, in our state governments that stand against this kind of stuff, that stand by the rule of law. We're the last bastion of hope in this country. There's no place else to go in this world. We're the last bastion of hope in the world. I've been to 17 countries. People want to come here. Y'all talk about how messed up we are. Why is everybody wanting to move here then? This is Daniel Bobinski. This is the New Book of Daniel podcast. If you want to take care of Daniel here, you want to help him out with what he's doing, hire me. I've been a management leadership coach for 30 years. I've been doing training with teams. I don't have any button up yet. I don't know if I ever will that says donate, but if you want to help me out, go to myworkplaceexcellence.com. Take a look at what I have to offer. You want to get a hold of me? New Book of Daniel at outlook.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter at New Book of Daniel. And you can always read my stuff at uncoverdc.com. My political views on the foundations of our country and the foundations of our society. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode number 2 of the New Book of Daniel podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in episode number 3.